Taking melatonin to sleep. Is this safe? Why do you have to have a prescription in other countries to get a hold of this? What is it? Today, Dr. V and I are going to answer all of the questions that are most commonly asked around melatonin. Every week we get together and we take all the most commonly asked questions, and we want to make sure that we're not only talking about the research that we've read, but also bringing our clinical experience to this to know what we're seeing happening live, and then taking it another level and helping you understand the why, the how, and the what brings us to our conclusion to say whether or not this is something that we would think is worth people keeping in their world. I'm going to start out really, Dr. B, here by a little shock and awe and share them is why I think this is important that we start talking about this. Thousands of children, can you see this?
Yes.
Are landing in the ER after ingesting melatonin without supervision. Now, this was in March of 2024. It gets down here saying that based on 300 cases, researchers estimated that 10,000 plus emergency department visits occurred during that time, accounting for 7% of all ER visits. It was for unsupervised medication exposures in infants and young children. Okay. And you were asking what was the dose that they were taking. Well, that was the problem. Is in this article, it talks about that there is a problem with the regulation of these supplements. And it's dangerous because one product contained 347% more melatonin than what was actually listed on the label of the gummies. And this is why you can't just walk into the store and grab something. There's just too much danger involved, right?
Did that other study talk at all about what the symptoms were for those kids that were going into the ER? What happened to them when they took too much?
That's a really good question. I would have to go back and look through it and see. Side effects for melatonin in children can include drowsiness, headaches, agitation, increased bedwetting, urination in the evening, also potential for harmful interactions with other medications, allergic reactions to melatonin. Well, they must be a synthetic melatonin because it's something our body would normally make, right? So we would sort of be allergic to that. Agencies also warn supplements can affect hormonal development, including puberty, menstrual cycles, overproduction of hormone prolactin. Breast milk development can be impaired. This is these two. I'll put both of these articles in the links below so people can really dive deep into them. But so clearly, right out of the gate, we're saying exercise extreme caution with these.
Right. Well, it's interesting because I mean, none of those symptoms are the things that would really put a kid in the ER. You know, yeah, those are all concerns, but I mean, most of those are not going to have a mom, calling the ambulance at 1 o'clock in the morning. So interesting. So let's kind of dive in a little bit, some the mechanisms and what melatonin is, right? I guess we need to start with the definition ultimately.
Yeah. Go for it. Help us out. What is it?
It's a hormone, right? Basically, it's a hormone. It's the opposite of cortisol. Cortisol is a hormone that gets us up and going, gets us started in the morning. That's from blue-green lights. We talked about this on our last podcast on Truth or Trend, but the blue-green hues get the cortisol going, gets us out of bed in the morning, says, hey, it's time to get up, slay the day. Then as the sun starts setting down, we get the orange-red hues of evening, of sundown. That tells the pineal, hey, it's time to start making melatonin. Melatonin then is the hormone that helps us cleanse, recover, rebuild, recover at night. It is a natural, innate hormone that our body produces and should produce in a good, healthy, functioning physiology. Half of that melatonin is made in the pineal gland, which pineal is the sleep-wake cycles, menstrual cycles. It's what gets jacked up when you go through multiple time zones, like I'm about to do tomorrow. I got 24 hours of travel tomorrow.
Tiny little gland up here, also called the third eye sometimes, right?
Right.
It's like a pine cone, real tiny.
Crazy that it's in the skull, but it can still sense, via the eyes and stuff, but it can still sense light, whether, what time of day it is. So the little pineal gland makes it. The pineal gland is very inhibited by sugar. So that's part of why sugar so adversely disrupts sleep.
Whoa, let's repeat that. Anybody out there who's had to take melatonin to sleep, check your sugar intake.
There
Bingo.
we go.
Done, right?
There's a short to be posted.
Hmm.
So sugar dramatically inhibits the pineal gland. There's a book called Lights Out that goes into that very nicely. What happened to your camera there?
I don't know, man. It's saying,
So
hey, man, this guy,
lights out.
we're tired of looking at that guy. We're gonna
Let's
blur him
do
out for a
that.
minute. That's all right. The important guy's talking. So keep.
Ah, so melatonin stimulates recovery, rebuilding, regenerating while we sleep. So again, sugar inhibits it. We don't want to inhibit it. We want it. Nope.
I'm trying to. There we go.
There we go. Okay. So, so in the presence of melatonin, the brain shrinks. Normally, we would think shrinking brain, holy Toledo, I don't want to shrink my brain, but it's actually a process of recovery, of healing, of regenerating. Think of the lymphatic system in the body. When our muscles pump, that pumps lymph through the system to cleanse, to move, get rid of cancer cells, and cleanse and detox the body when we're up and about or exercising or rebounding. Those are all ways of moving lymphatics around. In the brain, we got that hard cranial vault. There's a little bit of motion with the cranial bones to move that, to move with cerebral spinal fluid, with the heartbeat and with activity. Some of that moves a little bit of CSF, cerebral spinal fluid, around the brain and the spinal cord. But ultimately, it's the brain shrinking at night that then gives more room to get those fluids that it's called the glymphatic system, which is the lymphatic system of the brain, to cleanse, to get all those toxins out of all that stinking thinking we did through the day, to recover the brain and cleanse it. And so melatonin initiates that whole process. So if we're deficient in melatonin, we're not going to get that good cleansing, that rebuilding, that stimulates the recovery, the creativity for the next day, gets us back and to bring our A game. So there's benefits that God made melatonin in the body for a lot of very powerful, a lot of very necessary functions. So then the truth or trend is taking melatonin, synthetically ingesting, melatonin to help facilitate this process. And the trend aspect of it is be careful, right? Like
Mm.
these kids, oh, this gummy, put it in something that tastes like candy for a kid, and
Yeah,
they're like,
yeah,
ooh, this tastes good. Let's take some more, right? And
yeah,
that's
yeah.
a lot of where they're going to get into trouble. The milligrams, typically, especially if you have kids around, you want to keep it in low single digits, 1, 2, 3, milligrams potentially. I mean, I think 10's about tops. I don't know. I'm open. I'd like to hear your opinion on this.
On how much to
But
take.
keep
I
it
mean, yeah, I'm never an advocate for taking exogenous hormones, right? Because
right. Hmm.
they're always compensating for something else, and sometimes okay. And I think short-term use is generally considered safe, right? And maybe
Hmm.
no more than 10 milligrams, definitely not
Hmm.
time.
Right.
But
Right.
it's the long-term safety stuff that we want to answer that I think it's really not a great idea. It's uncertain, even though it's a great thing.
Hmm.
Not only could it be a problem of just constantly doing too much of it, like these kids are happening to have to go to the ER because of it, but
Hmm.
also whatever you're compensating for is never getting corrected, and that's going to become a problem somewhere else, right?
Truth. Right.
Oh, we hit a truth.
And so, so we talked about half of it being made in the pineal gland, the other half being made in the colon or the intestine, the gut biome.
Yeah.
We in the presence of magnesium and B12, believe it or not, we think of B12 as an energy-inducing B vitamin, but the reality is B12 actually helps convert serotonin to melatonin.
That's
So
right.
if we are deficient in serotonin, which is in the presence of toxic metals, is the most common way to lower, decrease serotonin. If we don't have enough serotonin as a precursor to melatonin, then we're going to end up deficient. That's the person that might do good, in the short term, as you mentioned, to snap out of it. But the better idea is look at why. So that's part of how magnesium becomes beneficial to help people sleep is, if we got too much serotonin, we're awake and we're stimulated. Serotonin gets, helps us focus to safety or getting the project done, that sort of thing. That magnesium helps convert that focus serotonin to melatonin to help us sleep and get the restorative functions that we need. So that's part of the benefit of magnesium.
Mm.
Then the other aspect is a good healthy gut biome, right? To
Mm.
help make that melatonin, right? The gut brain axis, the gut being the second brain, all those things that we've talked about ad nauseum on these different podcasts. But having that good healthy gut the gut biome, the good bacteria in there will help us make the melatonin to help us get the good deep sleep. And I'm leading up to that is where I see, when people are taking melatonin too frequently or too often or too much, I see a disrupt gut biome and disrupt gut function. So
Mm.
that's my initial kind of soft, be careful aspect to it. Mhm.
Well, and also, I mean, there is a piece of methylation that's involved in being able to create melatonin from serotonin, right? So
Okay.
that is something that is something obviously we talked a lot about, and that's where magnesium could also be coming in to help facilitate the methylation
B12. Well,
for
B12
that,
is the
right?
primary methyl donor.
Right, exactly,
There
and
you
that
go.
too.
Hmm.
Um, but the other thing to think about when it comes to melatonin is we have the circadian rhythm, right? That
Hmm.
happens. And when like you said, with the colors of the sky going down, we'll get that surge in melatonin, but it will not surge if we still have high cortisol at time.
Right.
Melatonin
Hmm.
can only surge. So this could be a huge piece of this could be understanding adrenal insufficiency, really tired adrenal glands that have been working all day to try to get you some cortisol, and they finally have some at night,
Hmm.
right? So that's why I think in order to truly get that melatonin going again, there has to be a piece of this where you're looking at the adrenal function and whether or not you're getting your circadian rhythm set for the morning to produce the cortisol versus the nighttime to do that.
True. Right, right, right. So that rhythm should be correct.
Mm-hmm.
So the inverse circadian rhythm, right? Tired during the day and then awake at night. Or
Mm-hmm.
the person that's so, I mean, there's the other side of that, the person that's working night shift. What a mess that is. I'm trying
Right.
to slow at this point, Lord willing, reverse,
Yeah.
dementia for a person that has, hey, I make 10% more if I work the night shift, for his
Oh,
job. And I kept saying, dude, you're making a mess of your brain. And
yeah.
it created, dissension, made him more grumpy with his family, and
Yeah.
his brain was just not healing, recovering properly. Now we're fighting hard to keep his brain functional. He's not able to work at this point,
Oh.
because of the consequences of 10, 15 years of working the night shift
The,
to make 10% more money.
the amount of health conditions that are exceedingly exacerbated by working outside of your normal circadian rhythm, we talked about in one of our mastermind groups. It's incredible how many health conditions, heart diseases, all these things go. I mean, just look at what happens when daylight savings happens, right?
Hmm.
The amount of heart attacks goes up incredibly high on the day after, the Monday after daylight savings, because of the change in the circadian rhythm. It just messes it up. So yeah, you got to be a respecter of that to be able to get these going. Uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
and this is why I think of things like ashwagandha being taught to be a sleep helping herb because it helps to reduce cortisol so that melatonin can surge at night, right? So that is
Great,
a great addition often to be able to
great
help.
point. Yes, and I
Yeah.
just was going to throw in another trigger of inverse circadian rhythm or the chronic cortisol secretion is old concussions,
Mm,
unfortunately. A lot
mm,
of, most practitioners don't, sorry to say, but don't have appropriate tools really to reverse the adverse effects of those concussions. There are things like lion's mane, or lion's mane with lithium that works
yeah.
really good for that.
Yes.
Lithium is a good mineral to help rebuild the microglia to get again, that lymphatic system functioning properly.
Yeah.
Um, EFAs, omega 3s with high DHA, that fraction of the omega 3s, another good one to heal, rebuild, protect the brain against these concussions. PTSD is a form of basically an emotional concussion, if you will. So
Mhm.
you get that gnarly stressor that feels overwhelming at the time. We get stuck in that fight or flight mode. There's that chronic cortisol that's going to then not allow us to get the melatonin we need to rebuild and recover at night. So
Right.
those are a couple other triggers to consider as you're trying to figure out why your sleep is still disrupted after all these years, potentially.
Yeah. Well, all of that. I mean, just to talk to about what you were saying about the pineal gland being reset and moving in circadian rhythms, one of the things that I found to be helpful for people who can't sleep at night is helping them with things in the morning, right? So like pineal gland support in the morning, standard
Bright light
process,
in the eyes. Hmm.
right? But a neuroplex is a great form of pineal gland support that I found to help people even going to the other side of the planet and back and having any jet lag, right? It's a very cool
Hmm.
piece. Chase tree has been known to be very helpful, right, with
Hmm.
balancing the with the neurotransmitters when it comes to change and shift.
I always
But
struggle with Chase Tree knowing that it's what the monks use to kill their libido.
well,
I'm
it
like,
is
I want
still
nothing to do with
cholinergic,
that.
though. Yeah. The poison's in the dose, Dr. B. Yeah, don't worry. Your testosterone is not challenged by a simple herb like chase tree. um, but also, I think there is more of a conversation that about the adrenals. I think anybody out there who is short term using this as a fix to get to sleep or helping get to sleep, I would say almost 100% of the time should be looking to see what's going on with their adrenal glands and whether or not they need more support.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Great point. There's the summary right there.
Well, and most people don't think about this. They think about taking things at night to help them sleep, but actually taking adrenal support in the morning can help you sleep better that night, right? So
Yep.
you do want to think about the things that you're taking in the morning to set you up for a good night's sleep that night.
True. Yeah. And Carrie Bone says it still takes energy to sleep.
Yeah,
Right. You know,
yeah.
we're still rebuilding. It's still a process to recover and heal and rebuild. I mean, in training, that's the way I determine, or that's the way we determine if we're overtrained is resting heart rate's going to be up 10 beats higher the
Mhm.
next morning when we're beat down and overtrained. That means hey, take it easy, back it down, buddy. Your
Yeah.
body's still in recovery mode. So, I mean, resting heart rate is a good way to kind of gauge, you know, if you're not having balance, adequate balance in your life.
Well, and that
Mhm.
makes me think about resting heart rate. One of the things that you can do immediately to slow your heart rate down is to do deep breathing, obviously, right? Breathing
Mhm.
in, holding, and then breathing out longer than you breathed in. Well, the exhalation being longer than the inhalation is something that I've
Mhm.
learned is very powerful at slowing that heart rate down. And there have been studies that have shown just 20 minutes of deep breathing can increase natural melatonin production by 300% in some of these
Mhm.
studies.
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah, there's so much more you can do if you really, like we just to review, light exposure, make sure your
In the
sleep
morning,
is right. What's that?
in the morning, light exposure in the morning. Mhm.
Yes, yeah, yes.
In the
And
during
even
the day,
watching the
get some
sun
sun.
set at night can help, right? To set the
Right, right.
tone,
Blue
right?
blockers kind of fits in with
Mhm.
that. Blue blocker type sunglasses, or make don't look at screen time at
Right.
night. Mhm.
Mhm.
Just opened up another can of worms, but
No. Well, and then let's look at the precursors in general, right, for melatonin. A lot of times people were taking tryptophan years ago to help with
hmm
sleep because
hmm
tryptophan being the precursor to serotonin, serotonin being the precursor to melatonin. You do want to
hmm
make sure that you're getting ample protein. You have to have a good amount of protein,
hmm
make sure that you have
hmm
enough tryptophan to make it.
Turkey.
Turkey, right.
Thanksgiving. Everybody falls asleep after Thanksgiving dinner,
That's
right?
right. Yeah, sure. No, no, tryptophan will make you fall asleep. It makes it so you can't fall asleep, just to be clear with everybody out there
Right.
who's listening.
So your breathing thing, I mean, that's when I aberrantly, get stimulated with a work project or something when I shouldn't before I'm going to bed.
Mm.
That's part of what I will do is actually just lay in bed and do the 2 to 1, double the amount of time exhaling as I do inhaling. And just that's part of how I will try to chill out, slow my heart rate, calm
Yeah.
my brain.
It's a lot cheaper too than taking
It
something
is
potentially have
safer.
347% more of it than what's on the label. And that can be bad.
Right, right.
Well,
Cheaper and safer.
I take issue with it when I find products out there, companies who are sneaking melatonin into the formula and they're not even talking about why it's in there. So I always get a little
hmm
suspicious when I see that happening because I get concerned about overexposure because sometimes people maybe they are taking the maximum. They're taking 10 milligrams at night, and now we know it could be way more than that. And then they're getting it in all these other supplements that somebody just threw in there to pad the results.
hmm
Just be very careful. I'm going to tell everybody out there who's listening to it, look through your labels and make sure there isn't melatonin added in there.
Yeah.
Because that can be a problem, a real problem, especially if you're taking
Yeah.
it in the morning, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
And as I'm, we mentioned on the podcast we just finished, and looking at reading this estrogeneration book, and he talks about um, lavender actually and CBD often being estrogenic, and
Mm.
so a lot of times
Mm.
lavender fits into this whole, a lot of people are going to do, either lavender or lavender and melatonin as a sleep aid. I mean, I
Yeah.
used to have lavender next to the bed to help me, thinking, hey, help me sleep.
Wow.
I just had to, sweet, what do you call those? What do you call it? Anyway, swish little pieces of lavender literally in a vase next to my bed,
Oh
my
yeah, yeah.
nightstand,
Mhm,
thinking to
mhm.
breathe it. But it turns out it's a bit of an avoid for me. It didn't. It was almost become stimulating.
Wow.
Now I'm realizing that it's got estrogenic effects, and CBD, unfortunately, can have an estrogenic effect as well. And
Mm.
those are often, herbs that are going to go along or be in, like a lot of those gummies are going to have CBD and melatonin in them to try to knock people out to sleep. It's a
Mm.
strong concoction with potentially, big consequences.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
trying to sleep and end up with man boobs and crying at chick flicks and
Yeah. Man, that's interesting. I used to keep lavender out on my balcony in my apartment when I was younger, and I thought, oh, it smells nice. But now I'm thinking, oh, what happened? Yeah. Never know. I mean, it's not saying everybody out there that you should avoid lavender. That's not what we're saying.
Right,
But
right,
yeah,
right.
it's something to be careful of.
So you've been a sensitive guy ever since that,
Yeah.
huh?
That's just because I'm evolved. That's all. So I think we can sum this up for everybody, make it really simple. Of course, melatonin is a great thing. We want it. Our body makes it. We want it the way that our body makes it, when our body makes it. And we
Mhm.
want to make sure that if our body can't make it, we're using that to learn that there's something missing and there's something else that we need to go and take care of. And if you
Mhm.
need it
Mhm.
short term, totally, we're not judging, you got to get some sleep. But
Yeah.
it's not going to be the long term solution for you. So you do need to use that as a way to inspire you to get up and go through and look for other things that we just went through that could be what's truly missing. And that way you can get to back into balance with nature.
So safe, gentle ways to naturally increase your melatonin, keep your gut healthy, right?
Yep.
Use
Mm-hmm.
the blue, green, red, orange hues at night. Enjoy the
Yep.
sunset, right? Keep your sugar down. Consider
Yeah.
magnesium as a safer alternative,
Right.
right? Keep the screen time away for at least an hour before bedtime.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then deep breathing is another good way to kind of increase
Yeah.
your own melatonin.
And
Those
make
are all
sure you're
basically
getting,
free.
I'm sorry, say that again. I talked over you there.
I was just said those are all basically free.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and make sure you're eating protein, right? Something that's got a good whole food source of tryptophan in it. Make sure you're digesting it, and maybe take some essential amino acids if you cannot can confirm that you're getting enough protein. That might be helpful at night too to
I
help.
like protein food at bedtime for
Proto
some of those
bedtime.
people.
Yep.
Yeah, good way
Yeah,
to
all
do
your
that.
essentials. That's tryptophan in there too.
Hmm.
Awesome. All right, well, let's keep it short and sweet this time, right?
That was
Ask and
fun.
answered. It is a trend. Truth in there, but also, it's way more important to be careful of your source on this one for sure. Like I said, I'll put those links below so you guys can read about the dangers of the supplementing with it. But always a better idea to support your body's ability to do it naturally. All right,
Always. See you
cool.
next week.
See you next week.